Hey guys, it's Jerry Green here today. I want to share something with you on a topic that is really hot right now. A lot of people are talking about is novations. What's interesting is novations have been around for many years. Now it's just coming out more and more. It's kind of the sexy subject matter on things. Before it might have been wholesaling and it was now it's novations, or it might be multifamily or whatever it is. But this is kind of the big subject right now, the sexy one that's out there. So I just want to go over some basic things with you here today. Obviously, we're not going to go into a real deep dive right now on things, but I do want to talk a little bit about novations on things. First of all, let's break down really what the novation looks like. You know, a lot of you might be in a position where you're wholesaling properties. So you're going out, you're finding deals, you're taking that property and you're putting a contract in place. So let's just think about that. You're going out there, you're finding this contract. In fact, I'll just jump over here real quickly. You might be in a position where you're going out, you're writing a contract. So here's a contract on a property, and you're tying that property up under contract. Now that you have that property under contract, let's just say you put a contract on it for $100,000. Pretty simple on things. Now, you have somebody that's going to step into your shoes. So let's just say that you market the contract to somebody else. Now, I said contract, not the property, so you're marketing the contract. And they're going to come in and they are going to then take over your existing contract through what we call an assignment. They're going to take over your contract that you already have created, and they're going to pay you an assignment fee. And let's just say on that assignment fee, it's $10,000. So what are they doing? They're actually paying $110,000 for that property. I'm not worried about what it's worth. I'm just showing you the example of how this works. Obviously, it's got to be high enough after repaired value for the investor to get involved and be worth their deal. So we have a contract with our seller. So we look at that. So we have a contract with the seller. Say the contract with the seller is A, and B is me as an investor. So A is the seller, and B is me. Now we're going to bring in somebody else, which is another person right here, third party. And what's going to happen is they're going to pay me an assignment fee to take over my position right there. They're just taking over my rights in this contract. And then they will turn around and pay the seller $100,000 for the property plus $10,000 to us for our assignment fee. That's really a very simple assignment of contract. That's one way of doing that. This is basically what we call wholesaling, which most of you know when it comes to that. Some of you maybe don't know that you're watching this saying, oh, okay, that makes sense. Another way that we can potentially wholesale is we could potentially go in and actually close on this transaction here, buy it for 100, and then do what we call a double close, and then sell it to the other buyer immediately after that for the $110,000. The only problem with that is we run in some cost and things like that. So just to make sure everybody's with me on that. That's a typical wholesale type deal that's done through an assignment or like a double close. A lot of people say, well, okay, what about something on a novation? Well, first of all, a novation is a little bit different. So in a novation situation, think about this. On a novation situation, we're going to draw up a contract with some special language in it that allows us to be in a position that we can novate this contract. So we'll draw up this contract here. So we still have this contract with some special language in it. And let's just say that this particular deal, we're doing it for $120,000. We have the ability to do a novation on this. So we're drawing this up. So obviously we got A, which is the seller. These are the parties involved. And then we got B, which is me, in this case, still. So we have this contract. The cool thing about the novation, we're setting this up, and the language in here, we're going to be in a position where we could not assign our rights in this contract. We can do something where we're going to actually replace the parties that are involved with the contract. Now, it could be one or the other. It could be the seller, it could be the buyer, whoever that is. So in this case, we're going to take this here, this is very specific language in here. I could turn around and then market this over to another buyer. Let's just say I have an end buyer that wants actually to live in the house. And this end buyer wants to live in the house. And remember, I have it under contract for 120. Let's say I got somebody willing to come in at 140 and they're wanting to live in the house. So it's not even an investor. I'm going to draw up a brand new contract. Now notice there's no assignment contract. There's actually a brand new contract here for 140. Now that there's a contract for 140 on this property, and there's one at 120, we actually have one additional person coming in, and this is party C. Basically, if you look at the end buyer, the way the novation process will work is we also will do what we call, there's actual novation, I'm just going to put an N here for novation document. On this novation document, what we can turn around and do is we can actually replace parties on the contract. So what we can do, not do an actual assignment on things, but we can turn around and say, all right, great. What I'm going to do is novate this deal that I've created here. And what will happen is then this deal that is putting together this $140,000 deal is now going to be in a position where we are going to be taken out of this. Now notice, I'm going to be taken out of this equation. When I'm taken out of this equation, now what happens is the transaction goes between the seller and the end buyer. And that's how the contractual obligation is going to be on that side of things. What allows me to be able to do that is a novation agreement. How we're going to be paid is because we have an agreement with the seller originally for this. Then we put in an agreement called a novation agreement, which allows us to basically replace one party with another party. And we can replace them on the contract. What's going to happen is we're going to turn around and we're going to move the seller in this position where now we're going to have the end buyers buying for 140, the seller's still going to get their 120, and what's going to happen, there's going to be an additional amount left over, and that's going to be our novation fee for putting this together. When this happens, this typically is done at the close of the transaction, because this buyer could be in a position where they're getting a new loan. The difference is, if you remember this, on the assignment side of things, which was different, the assignment, there was just two people involved in this, and all we're doing is replacing really someone coming over, taking over our interests. On this deal here, we're not assigning our rights over to anybody, we're actually replacing parties on the contract. Totally different. It creates really a whole new agreement on things, a whole new contract. So now we're in this position where we can actually look at completing what we call a novation. Why would you want to do that? What qualifies for that? Well, we'll kind of cap this little training off with this. I want you to think about this. In our real estate business, most of you know what we call ARV, which is the after repaired value. So let's say the after repaired value on a particular deal is 180. So 180,000. Obviously, that's coming from comparables of other properties that have sold, right? As an investor, typically you're going in, and if you're looking at buying it below market value to create something either to wholesale or fix up and resell yourself, or to the end buyer who might buy your wholesale deal, you're going to buy down here. Let's just say, for instance, on this particular deal here, you're in a position where you're looking at buying it, maybe putting a contract on it for $80,000 as a wholesale deal. And then you turn around and you might wholesale that out through, like I said, an assignment or something, let's just say for $100. Now that gives the investor plenty of room to take it over from you, pay you a $20,000 assignment fee, plus put the rehab in it and have a little, depending on how much it needs a rehab. If it needs a lot, obviously they'll have to buy it cheaper. But I'm just using a quick example here. So we're in this position now, we take it over, investor takes over 100, pays us 20, they can turn around, fix up, and resell it for 180 in that range. That's typical wholesale type deal. The other thing I want you to think about though, as we look on a novation, things are a little bit different on that, is you're going to find that there is deals out there like this, which a lot of you deal with all the time, But also you're going to find there's a lot of deals out there that fall into this area right below what we call the market value after repair value. And this is really what we call the as-is value. And this as-is value is value of what the property would sell for on the open market, typically to like an owner-occupant that wanted to move into the property and do some of their own repairs and save the money that way, because maybe they're in the position where they think, I can do a little bit of work, I just can't do the major work. So maybe they're willing to come in and say, hey, you know what, man, if I could turn around and pick this property up for $150 and most of them are selling for $180, man, I'd be really happy. Well, the thing is, a lot of those properties are too nice for us to be able to buy them down here. We just can't make it happen. So a lot of times what we have to look at as an investor, we have to say, whoa, wait a minute. I could possibly work another process where I could do this program, what we call Novation, which the nice thing about it is I don't have to buy the property. I don't have to take title to it and have all those closing costs, the holding costs and stuff like that. I can control it, and then I can turn around and have a buyer come in that wants to live in the property and then buy that property. Here we are, maybe we can say, well, you know, I think we sell it as is for $150 in that range. Well, what if we're in a position where there's no way the seller would work at 80, but what if the seller would work with us for 110 and we give him $30,000 more for the same property? Not because we're some great human being and we just want to give. No, it doesn't work that way. We're in a position where we have another program, another strategy allows us to be able to come in and pay a higher price. But in return, what we're able to do is have a nicer property that we can put out on like the MLS and maybe market it and sell it for $150 when we have it under an agreement for $110. Notice there's equity here. There's a $40,000 equity spread in here. And you think, wow, that's a pretty good spread. Yeah, right here we were picking up 20, up here we're creating 40. But on top of that, out of this 40 though, we are also going to pay some cost out of this. So it's very common a lot of times on Novation for putting it on the market for you to pay out of that 40 real estate commissions, some inspection issues and things like that. Well, think about the benefit for the seller. The seller is in a position now where they get their property sold. They get $30,000 more than they would on a wholesale transaction. It's because it's a nicer property. They're willing to wait a little bit longer for their money. They're going to come out a winner. Then you think about this buyer here. They're going to come out a winner because now they're going to get a property below market value for $150, which they're saving $30,000. You're also in a position where you're going to be winning too, because you're creating the spread between these two numbers here on things. And because you don't have to actually buy the property and take it down and have all those at cost on things, you can turn around and offer to pay a lot of the fees for the seller. And then basically all you're doing is, like I said, instead of assigning your rights in a contract over, we're doing what we call a novation. I'll just go back to this one here, where we were in a position where we were actually replacing the parties in the agreement. Before, where we would assign our rights right here, now what's happened is the seller's still going to be in play, but now we have a brand new buyer, and those two are going to be working together on that because we have replaced ourselves out of this agreement. And then we get paid from the agreement we created here through the novation process. I know there was a lot of information. Just once you start looking at this and start understanding why, because I think a lot of people, where they get stuck, is they think, how does this work? Why would somebody do this? The biggest thing is I want you to realize going into, understanding that there's a big gap here of a lot of as-is type deals that are too nice to buy wholesale, but it creates an opportunity for us to do deals based upon really the as-is market value in a nicer condition. I hope this helps, guys. Do me a favor, if you would, like this video, share it with somebody. If you haven't already, subscribe to the YouTube channel here. And guys, I appreciate it and hope this makes an impact to you, and we'll talk to you later.